LHS Live, every Wednesday morning from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Where you'll hear from new guests every week on relevant topics. Community-based, student-driven. And now, your host, Joe Roberts.
Good morning, Panther Nation, and welcome to another week of LHS Live. I am Joe Roberts, and I'm here with our special guest, Michelle Merendino, attorney at law in the wonderful city of Liberty, TX. Thank you so much for being on the program with us today, Ms. Merendino.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right, so I am just wholly ignorant of all things law and other types of pastimes, so I'm going to ask you several questions to see if you can pull me into the know, right?
Okay.
But before I do all those probably silly questions, who are you? Why are you here? And what's going on with you?
Okay, so I am a native of Liberty County. I grew up in Haldeza, graduated high school there, and I opened my law practice here about 20 years ago. Born and raised here, and my daughter is a student of yours here, so I think that's how I got invited
yes,
to come.
That's how you got invited. See, if I've got a student here and they have cool parents, they get to come on.
Well, she definitely does not think I'm cool, but I think that's pretty normal for her age. But yeah, this is a wonderful program. She's had lots of interest in audiovisual stuff since she was little, and so I think I was interested in what she was doing, and somehow somebody thought that kids might be interested in how I became a lawyer, or what it's like to be a lawyer, or what sort of traits they might have that would make them good lawyers. I'm not certain entirely.
Well, this is this is kind of for the kids, but this is more for the grown folks here. So they'll get over it if they're not super interested. It's fine. So you've been here not been here. You've been practicing for 20 years. You said?
Correct. I've actually practiced a bit longer than that, but I opened my own practice here 20 years ago in 2002.
Oh my God. You know what? When you say it like that, when you say 20 years, it doesn't sound, that sounds old, but then when you say 2002, it feels like, well, that was just no, that wasn't last year.
The older you get, the more that it is that reaction. Oh, it's been 20 years. Wow.
Oh, so you've been doing law longer than any student at this high school has been alive.
Yes.
Now, doesn't that make you feel young?
It does. In fact, when I was just pondering what we might talk about today and thinking about what it means to be a lawyer now and kind of what things are like now, it occurred to me that this is the first year that we'll have students graduating from high school who were never alive to know the world before September 11th, 2001, and what a difference that's made in the legal landscape and just in our lives in general. So.
Oh, wow! Don't say stuff like that. I'm still young, and that makes me feel old. Or maybe I'm not young anymore. I don't know. Okay, so you are a family attorney.
Well, actually, I have a multifaceted practice. I'm what you would call a country lawyer.
Oh, all right.
So, and what I mean by that is traditionally in the big city and big firms particularly, lawyers will specialize in one small, even sometimes just a small area of practice, like discovery or tort litigation or insurance defense or medical malpractice, criminal defense. But when you have your own practice in a small community, you learn you need to be mastered in a bigger number of areas, particularly the things that touch most people's lives at some point, unfortunately, like probate, guardianship, criminal defense, juvenile law, family law, tax, mental health law. So I'm a litigator by and large, which is quite funny because before I became a lawyer, I was actually a second career lawyer, and I had a career as an accountant, and I did tax. So that's not typically the background of a litigator, but that's my background.
Wow, you do all the things that just, I feel like they're just so over my head. But it's interesting to me. So when I'm hearing you talk about all the things that you do, you really are a jack of all trades as far as the law goes. So when someone walks in your office door, by the way, which is located where?
424 Main Street, right next door to Jack's Hamburgers, and straight across the street. If you walk down the steps of the courthouse across Main Street, you'd walk right into my building.
All right. So when you're going down for a great hamburger at Jack's and you trip and stumble and you want to, sue somebody, I can just go right next door and do that? Is that what I'm hearing?
Okay, so funny story. Yes, I can advise you and connect you with someone. That is what I call tort civil litigation. My cousin, when I graduated law school, gave me an ambulance, a little toy ambulance that had sirens as a gift. I still have it, but I don't follow up with those. Particularly if it's someone I've represented in some other capacity, I try to have a relationship with my clients that I take care of them and take them to someone that I trust to do that sort of litigation. But that is very paper-oriented, and when I say that, I mean lots of paperwork. And although I do have 3 employees, I don't have the staff to do lots of cases like that. And so I really don't do a lot of injury, but I do help my existing clients on other matters find representation for those sorts of needs.
See, I'm just swinging and missing all over the
No,
place.
you're good. You're good. I think that helps inform everyone. I think that's the quintessential version, either that or a criminal defense lawyer, prosecutor. That's the things that are on TV that are sensationalized. And so I think that's where people's mind typically goes, but we do a whole lot more than just those sorts of things.
When I hear lawyer, the 2 kind of law things that come to my mind are, number one, like you said, the TV lawyers, and they're doing the whole thing in front of the jury, and they're being just outlandish and ridiculous, which I know from some experience that lawyer
That's not the way it goes.
That doesn't ever happen.
No.
Well, rarely ever happens. And then the other is, the hammer, is it Mr. Adler from
Yes.
Houston, and he's got the come on down, he truck accident and blah blah blah,
Yes.
and we'll get to it. So those are my 2 real thoughts when that happens. But you're neither of those things.
No.
So the kind of law that you does. Hello. Wow, do I even speak English? The kind of law that you do is more personal, small family.
I do child custody litigation. I represent juveniles when they're having trouble. I represent criminal defendants, people who've been accused of a crime, anywhere from something as simple as driving with a suspended license to something as complex as capital murder. Additionally, I do adoptions, terminations. I do probate matters where people are fussing and fighting over their family's estate. I actually do some planning, helping people figure out what their will needs to say. I do some real estate. I draft deeds. I think what I primarily consider myself as someone who is able to take an expertise in both my accounting background and my legal background and take problems, whether they're business problems, family problems, budget problems, disagreements, and take all of the tools that I have to craft a solution to a problem that hopefully both sides can live with. You see litigation, especially in the family law context, is really the worst type of resolution, because at that point, once you've gone through that courtroom experience where both parties have an advocate trying to destroy the other, it's not good for the long-term consequences to a family. So I do my best in my practice to avoid that and try to point out to my clients that, lots of folks think that divorce is the end of their relationship with that party that they don't want to be married to and live in the same house with. But if you have children, it really typically is not. There will always be weddings, birthday parties, graduations, every monumental life event, and most children, absent some sort of substance abuse or a real terrible problem, and want both their parents there. And you want to try to, as the attorney, protect your client's rights, but keep those overall things in the back of your mind, because it's more than just winning the day.
Awesome. So you try to avoid going before a judge.
I wouldn't say going before the judge, but I try to take the tact that families, individuals are much better suited than an arm of the government to
All right,
solve their
okay.
own problems, because the judge is really, that's the government interfering in your life. And when you're mad at someone, you may want someone else to tell them what to do. But remember, when you ask
Right.
for the court to make the decisions, that means typically neither party is really happy. And in the context of court, the bigger our county grows, the shorter period of time that we as attorneys have in front of the court to try to get all of the facts out there. And there are constraints that people don't understand with evidentiary constraints, and the judge doesn't get to know everything you know about your life. So if it's possible, if it's not, I enjoy litigation. It's
Okay.
fun. It's fun to
Okay.
litigate,
Okay.
but that's not typically the optimal way to resolve
It's,
your matters.
less than optimal, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's funny that we haven't really run across each other. Several years ago, I volunteered with those good folks over at CASA, and I was working for Debbie Duggar, and I was going and doing a lot of stuff and I heard you say you did a lot of, adoptions and family and kid stuff, and I thought maybe that's not really
Okay,
things
so
that you're dealing
I
with.
will tell you. That advocacy group is a wonderful organization, and I spent the first 10 years of my practice taking those court appointments and dealing with the court. I don't know how I've missed you particularly. I do take paid representation in those, but that's very rare. So I do work with them occasionally, and they do wonderful work. But that part of my legal career is kind of
Okay.
gone.
So it's a different chapter.
Well, I feel like, we need to do those things to contribute to our community, but
Right.
my practice has kind of evolved past that point.
Okay. Yeah, it's been several years since I did that, and I just enjoyed it, and getting in there to see kind of how it was different when you think about what's on TV versus the reality. And rarely was anyone up in front of the judge and advocating, so to speak. It was more, hey, you come over here and let's have a private conversation, and you come over here, let's have a private conversation, and hey, come into my chambers, let's have a conversation. And it's much different than what you would expect.
And in that context, that it's very different because of the large docket and the particular circumstances. And that litigation has a whole separate chapter of the family code, actually several chapters dedicated to how those disputes are resolved, because they're really working with families trying to solve problems in that context. Somebody detail-oriented who loves the rules of evidence, and that becomes frustrating at times.
Oh, no doubt about that. Are you watching LHS Live? I'm Joe Roberts, and I'm here with special guest Michelle Merendino. About 10 minutes left in the program. Miss Merendino, I've got a question for you. I know... Oh,
Yes.
My producer's finally chirping in on my ear. We're having some problems early on. Thank you, Mr. Ewing. JD, do you have that? The
Juris Doctorate, you mean?
Yes, there you go. I knew I would get something. So when you get your law degree, do you get a JD?
Yes.
So what does that mean? Is it's a doctorate of law?
It's a Juris Doctorate. It's a course of study that it is equivalent in hours-wise, I guess, to a PhD, but it's not a PhD. It's a study that you simply get from law school. It's not
So we don't get to call you Dr. Merendino?
not unless I get a PhD or go to medical school.
Okay, so it doesn't work that way. Now,
No.
what about the Esquire thing? What does that mean?
Okay, esquire and attorney or barrister are all just different terms for the same profession.
Okay.
Attorney or lawyer.
All right, but you don't have the Michelle Merendino Esquire or anything like that, or do you do that?
No.
I'll see I think that would make a really cool business card, or maybe a really cool show on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m.
There are some people whose personality that lends itself to that designation, but I'm from Hull, so I'm a lawyer.
Oh, see, all right. See, I can hear the producer laughing in the background. We've got so many walks of life. It's funny here in Liberty that just in this couple of mile radius, there's just such a wide span of big city and country life, and And now I really understand what you mean by you have to be prepared. You don't know what's about to walk through your door,
No.
and you have no idea how you're going to help them. How often do you have to turn people away? I know that's kind of a loaded question.
Well, not frequently, because frequently I find some way to help people. But I will admit, since COVID and trying to recover from that, the nice thing about being in private practice, especially when you consider yourself as a helper, and I think that if you're really called to be an attorney, then that you should have a helping heart and have a commitment to the community that you live in. And so I enjoy being able to have the flexibility to help people who, maybe can't afford your services, or it only takes 15 minutes of your time to sit down with them and help them work through. So very rarely do I just turn someone away unless they come into my office with something that I have no background in and that would take hours of research for me to be able to assist them in some way.
See, I didn't even ask your daughter before I invited you on here. Are we getting billed right now?
No.
Okay. All right. I didn't want the front office to get some law offices of Merendino. Okay. So we've talked about your different life chapters here. I understand, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but there's another chapter of your life that you're looking to open in the future, the near future. You are running for something, right?
I am. I'm running to be the first female attorney judge in our courthouse here in Liberty of our county court at law.
Okay. So what does that position entail?
Okay, so not every judge has to be an attorney. So that's the first important thing to know, because people get confused. We have a county judge. A county judge is that's a position created by the Texas Constitution, and it's more of an administrative oversight. It's a non-lawyer job, although there are aspects that they do have to be proficient in the law, but that's not the position I'm running for.
That's what Judge Knight does?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. He's like the chief executive of our county, and he does deal with probate, and he does deal with misdemeanor juvenile issues and mental health. So there are some aspects of almost lawyering where you do have to have a really detailed understanding of the rules of procedure, evidence, and the substantive law. But the position that I'm running for deals with misdemeanors, family law, juveniles, tax litigation, condemnation proceedings. So probate matters, guardianship matters. It's really the jurisdiction, and jurisdiction means the power of a court to adjudicate the case, the type of case. And the jurisdiction of this court that I'm running for really is the best representation of what the 20 years I've spent as an advocate. It covers those areas of the law that I feel like I've got a breadth of experience and knowledge base from which to draw to do a good job. But it's a different role. You're the umpire. You need to be very well versed in the law, be able to follow the evidence back and forth, but you get to call balls and strikes. And you don't have to advocate on a position that you don't necessarily agree with, but that's the position that your client finds themselves in. And I graduated in the top of my law school class. I graduated top 1%. So I love the law. I love to read the law. I love to study the law. And being a judge is it's a different situation where you're able to just sit back and look at the law itself. Not try to take a position one way or the other, but to read the law and try to figure out what the best answer is. That's something that I've tried to facilitate with my practice, but there are limits. When you're an advocate, you have to advocate for your client. You have to put the facts out there in the light most favorable to your client. When you're the judge, you get to look at the big picture and try to craft a solution that is just and right and fair. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to use the skills I have for the benefit of our community.
Okay, so you're a law nerd, right?
I am. I'm a numbers nerd and a law nerd. I'm
See,
sorry, Isabella.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I appreciate someone that likes to look at the intricacies of things, because I feel like when you look at those small details, you're going to be able to see the bigger things, and less things are going to slip through the cracks, and we need some good people in good positions. So what will it mean to be the first female in this position for
Our whole
folks?
county. I just think it, for me personally, it would mean that our community has come to a place where women are trusted
Mm-hmm.
for their intellect, for their commitment to the community, to be put in positions where we can influence how our county develops. I mean, irrespective of whether it's being the judge of the county court at law or some other elected official on the school board, the city council, by and large, traditionally, Liberty has still had men making the major decisions, and I think it would be very meaningful, especially to our young women, to know that they have something to contribute, not just in the world, but here at home in our county, that they're valued and that their skill set is an important contribution to what our future holds for Liberty.
See, I like that. Growing up, I'm not from Liberty, but from the East Texas area, and seeing the changes that have been coming down the road. Some things I like, some things I don't like.
Oh, I can definitely agree with that. And I'm not one to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm very proud to be from Liberty County. Growing up, I think I thought I wanted to go to the big city, the bright lights, all that fun. And then you go there for a moment and you realize how very special our people, our hometown people are. We have the most community-oriented, loving people. Your neighbor may not like you, but if its times are down, they're the first one to come over and bring you some dinner. And everywhere is not like that. Until you leave this little cocoon, you don't realize. And as we have urban sprawl coming in on our county, I'm hopeful that we will have leaders that will kind of step up and try to preserve those really good aspects of our county that make this Liberty a great place to grow up and to raise a family and to live.
Well, let's talk about that real briefly. As Liberty County growing, I mean, Cleveland is just blowing up right now, and the parkway's coming through on the other side of Dayton, and
Yes.
I'm sure that place is going to just explode the way Cleveland is exploding. And then I hear some talk about the Moss Hill area is supposed to be kind of exploding at some point. If you were to be elected to that spot, how would you be able to help shape the narrative that this is just the greatest place in Texas to be?
Well, to keep it the greatest place in Southeast Texas to be, I think one of the things, when I first started practicing law 20 years ago, we had about one murder a year. The violent crime, shootings at the gas station, those sorts of things did not happen here. Now, of course, you can never, as a judicial candidate or a judge, say how you would rule on any particular issue, but just as a general statement, I think that knowing that we're not East Harris County, we don't give slaps on the wrist for things that jeopardize our community, that we take seriously having a peaceful environment in which to live and raise our children, is important. And I think in the administration of this position that you can do things to facilitate that set of values and really hit that home with folks. I know back when I began my practice, and if I would represent people who were from Harris County, they were astonished at how much more stringent punishments were here than in the city. That deters crime or makes them go somewhere around our county if they believe that they will be held accountable when they are guests here. And so that's just one type of thing where I think there are many where philosophies, policies, and values matter in the administration of our judicial system.
Awesome. All right, last thing, Ms. Merendino. If there was one piece of advice, one life lesson that someone might be able to take away from a conversation with you, what would that piece of advice or life lesson be?
I think maybe the life lesson that I would hope that people could take away, and I haven't shared quite enough, is that irrespective, never be ashamed of small beginnings. I wasn't raised in a family of lawyers. My grandparents weren't educated. My parents are teachers. My dad's a truck driver. But I was determined. I worked 2 jobs. I got my undergraduate, a bachelor's degree with student loans, and I was able to get a good career being an accountant. Then I went on to law school and was able to accomplish a great many things because there are those opportunities. So don't think that you're pigeonholed just because you're from a small town or a small school. Take your skills, believe in yourself, and you'll be surprised at what you were able to accomplish.
That's some great advice right there. Thank you for sharing that. Panther Nation, a couple of shout outs before we take off today. I'm going to give a shout out to Madison Goudeau. Scored her 1,000th point in her career, her basketball career, the other night, and had a little recognition for her, I believe, on was it yesterday they had that. And next week on Wednesday, 6 p.m., the LMS Panther players are going to be performing their one-act play show at 6 p.m. at the LISD Auditorium. It'll be $5 at the door. Come on out and support those great young kids. You've been watching LHS Live. I'm Joe Roberts, special guest Michelle Merendino. Thank you again for being on. And we'll hit you next week, next Wednesday at 9:30 with another interesting guest. See you next time.
Thanks for watching every Wednesday morning from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. New guests every week on relevant topics. Community-based. Student-driven. Don't forget to tune in next week for LHS Live.